calls meeting to order.
The City of San Clemente respects the many people of different faiths who reside here. The City Council historically begins its session with an invocation offered by one of the religious leaders of our community with full appreciation of our shared belief that we are one nation under God. And while the City cannot endorse any particular religion, we respect the religious freedom and freedom of expression of all our citizens to pray as they feel led to pray. This evening's invocation will be given by Mrs. Robin Margraf of Our Lady of Fatima Church. Or not.
Or not. Lou, you want to give an invocation?
No, I don't think so.
Well, does anybody want to raise their hand?
Yeah, but he would raise his
Okay.
hand. If
There you go. Pamela's going to give it, and then please remain standing for Mr. Schwartz, who's going to lead us in the pledge.
Sing the Marines hymn again. Yeah.
In the name of the I am that I am, in the name of my holy Christ self, I call for the blessing of this council chambers meeting. Today, I ask that they all be blessed with peace and those things that they give to us so freely and one-pointedly. I call that it go out into the world and envelop the world and bring all of her children home, and so that they can recognize the peace and the healing that happens only in this village, our San Clemente village, San Clemente, California, zip code 92672. Thank you, dear Lord, for this council chambers. They can do no wrong. They have led us like an offshoot of the Oval Office right here, made local. In the name of the I am that I am, in the name of my holy Christ self, in Jesus' name, thank you, dear Lord, for this, our prayer, the Lord's Prayer we love.
Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Okay.
I'm glad we didn't go with you.
Okay.
That would have been hard to beat.
Okay.
So I'm glad we didn't go with you. That one would have been hard to beat.
Councilmember Schwartz.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ham.
Here.
And Councilmember Donchak and Mayor Brown are absent. First item on the agenda is a toll road update.
We don't have any additional detail here.
Okay. I have something that I can announce. The City of San Clemente, we're going to be holding a toll road forum on October 25th at the Presbyterian Church from 6 to 8 p.m. And a press release will be following, but I just wanted to get that word out. That's it.
Steve, anything? No. Okay. No cards? Okay.
And Mr. Terrence Hughes has requested that the next item on the agenda, the Boys and Girls Club report, be deferred to the council meeting of October 2nd. Members of the audience who wish to address council on matters that are within the jurisdiction of the City of San Clemente, but not separately listed on the agenda, may do so during the oral communications portion of the meeting. A total time limitation of 30 minutes is allocated for oral communications part 1, with each speaker being allotted 3 minutes, which to give his or her presentation. And I have 2 cards.
Okay, if you could step right up. Our first person is Tyler Bowden, followed by Tyler will be Matt Willis.
Hello, Council. Hope you're doing well. I just wanted to come in and I haven't been to a council meeting in a while and wasn't able to make it to some meetings in the past where people have come up and spoken about community choice energy. But it's my first opportunity to get here to do so, and I just really wanted to come in and express my support as a community member for community choice energy. We've seen it in effect in various different municipalities around the state, and it's been very successful so far. Not only in reducing rates for ratepayers in each given community, but also in raising funds for the respective cities that they're serving. And it's a great way for ratepayers or municipalities, a city like our own, to choose where energy is coming from instead of leaving it to investor-owned utilities, but also choosing how much the energy costs instead of leaving it to investor-owned utilities. Those utilities typically charge between an 8 to 10% margin on the power that they send and deliver to the ratepayers, And as a city municipality, as a community choice aggregator, we would have the ability to choose what that margin is. And of course, with any business, there has to be some amount of margin to maintain and maybe even profit somewhat. But the beauty of community choice energy is that profit goes right back into the city, and we get to decide what to do with it, whether to lower rates even further, whether to invest in renewable projects in the city to then offset future costs, or even to invest in other city programs and projects that we want to do. So I'd just like to express my support for community choice energy, and really the next step for us is to engage in a feasibility study for that. And I know we're in an election season right now, so it's kind of heated. There's a lot of different topics to talk about. I'm not sure if this council would want to engage in a feasibility study before the election, but it would be very timely, and I know that we wouldn't regret it. So thank you for your time.
Thanks for your time. James, when are you going to be coming back, or staff going to be coming back with our report?
Probably not until November.
Okay.
So it won't be a feasibility study, it'll be asking council for next steps.
More informational, correct?
More informational.
Yep. Mr. Willis? And then Mr. Willis is our last speaker for oral communications.
Hi, Council. Matt Willis here, resident as of about a year ago, energy consultant myself, and here to kind of back up what Tyler just mentioned with my support for community choice aggregation, or energy, whichever one you want to call it. It's good to hear that we're getting a report done. Thank you guys for that. Realistically speaking, putting the choice of energy back in the hands of the people is what CCAs are about. And from a technical perspective, from an organizational perspective, it's something that if we establish the boards, the correct boards, the legislative boards and everything else to build the CCA out and get it in front of the CPUC and get it in front of the CEC and start going through the processes to get that put into place. It's a timely process. It's going to take us 5 or 6 years just to get something like this off the ground from an organizational standpoint. However, once we get to that point, the sustainability and the structure of that moving forward will land in our control. And ultimately, we've had wins across the state, so we don't have to be at the front of the spear tip on this one. So we can leverage what's already out there and what's being done and try and take some of those applications and bring it in-house. But yeah, mostly I'm just here to support CCAs as a whole and let you know that if any advice is needed to the council, I'm out there, and we have, I've been on both sides, from the utility side and the private developer side. So thank you for your time, and yeah.
Well, welcome to the community, and thanks for the information. Joanne, no more cards?
No.
Okay.
Could we have a motion to waive reading in full of all resolutions and ordinances?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Ward, second by Ham. All's in favor? Aye. Aye. Passes 3-0.
Closed session report, city attorney.
We just have one item to report. There was an item added late last week to the agenda. It was initiation of litigation against the operator and property owner of property at 1402 North El Camino Real. That property is being operated as a retail marijuana dispensary, and that violates the city's zoning code at that location without permits. So the council authorized us, we already sent out a cease and desist order. The council authorized us to bring a civil action against that operator and that owner, and we expect to have that done before close of business on Friday.
All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion without discussion, unless council staff or the public request removal of an item for separate discussion and action. And I have not received any requests for removal.
Second. Motion by Schwartz and second by Ham to remove the consent calendar. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Passes 3-0.
The public hearing process includes a staff presentation, a presentation by the applicant not to exceed 10 minutes, and public testimony not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker. Following closure of the public hearing, the City Council will respond to questions raised during the hearing, discuss the issues, and act upon the matter by motion. The The first public hearing is a continued public hearing to consider an appeal of the Planning Commission's decision of April 18, 2018, approving a large family daycare facility for up to 10 children, where a small family daycare community currently operates in an existing townhome located at 3 Paseo Vista.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, we assisted the city staff in bringing this application recommendation forward, so I'm not able to sit with the council as a hearing body on it. We had substitute counsel lined up for tonight, but something's happened, so I don't think it's going to have legal complications that require lawyers on either side of it. So if it's all right with you, I'll just leave you to your own devices, and if we get bogged down on a legal matter, then we'll recommend that you continue it till he can be here, but I think you're going to be fine.
All right, good evening, council members, city manager. My name is Veronica Moronis, assistant planner. This is an appeal of the Rasta Large Family Daycare conditional use permit. The operator currently has a small family daycare at this location, which serves 8 children. On April 18th, Planning Commission approved the application to allow an expansion to a large family daycare. The applicant originally requested up to 14 children, but Planning Commission conditioned the project to not exceed 10 children. The applicant agreed to that condition at public hearing. An appeal was filed by Susan Banky. The appeal claims that the application submitted contains misinformation and misleading statements by the applicant, specifically pertaining to fire authority review, CCNRs, CEQA analysis, as well as the outdoor play area and ingress and egress of the site. The project site is located at 3 Paseo Vista, which is a condominium residence in the Talega specific plan. Both the zoning ordinance and the Talega specific plan allow for large family daycares through the conditional use permitting process. Staff reviewed the application and determined that the application complies with the zoning ordinance and conforms to all requirements and meets the required findings for the conditional use permit. The staff report correctly states that the CEQA analysis, the CEQA determination is statutorily exempt, and the project is still subject to all state licensing review, including fire authority review, subsequent to this approval. This includes obtaining a new license for the changeover to a large family daycare, and should the home not meet the required state licensing, it would be, in theory, denied a license by the state. Staff recommends City Council uphold the Planning Commission approval subject to the draft conditions of approval and find the project statutorily exempt from CEQA. Staff's available for questions, and the applicant is here for questions as well.
Great. Thanks for your report. You have any questions, staff?
Yeah. What's their child count now as a small?
Currently 8 is the threshold.
So we're talking about allowing them to go from 8 to 10?
Correct.
Okay.
The letter that you forwarded to us from the applicant, it didn't have a date on it. Was that a letter prior to the Planning Commission meeting where they conditioned it to 10 or after?
That was prior. That was something submitted.
Okay,
prior.
that makes sense. All right, thank you.
Questions of staff? We'll hear from the public. Okay. We'll open the public hearing. The first person to speak is Diane Stifel, followed by Diane will be Jurgen Stifel, followed by Jurgen will be Suzanne Shaw, and the final speaker is Navid Hirani.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for being here. I know you guys want to do the right thing, and I do too. And I don't even think we would be here if there weren't so many misrepresentations on the first application on the Planning Commission. Some history. In 2011, they paid cash for this property and signed an agreement that they would not start any kind of business, especially not a business with clients coming and going. So 3 weeks later, they started a business, 2011. So there are 302 owners. About 30 owners have written to the City Council asking you please to not approve this. The cost that we've had in our community because of one homeowner wanting to go against all these rules with lawyer fees, time, your time, the Planning Commission, it's been pretty astronomical. I want to tell you that I don't know if any of you live in a condo facility, but 2 doors down, I hear when my neighbor shuts her toilet seat. So I'm thinking, if somebody is home, wants to spend the day home doing their work, but not having clients coming in and out, as which everybody agreed to in our community, they have a shared wall. So the area that they're in, it's like a horseshoe. Every wall is attached. Why couldn't they be happy with 1 to 8? In 2011, they never once came to the homeowners and said, hey, we're running a business. They never did it because they would have not been approved. So then they tried to get this through. So we've got 188 residents in a 300-foot radius got letters. So if you think about how condensed our community is, if Standard Pacific thought that they wanted to allow 10 more cars coming into a condo area 4 times a day, they would have built and zoned and planned, obviously, another group of condos. So the way we use our community, because we have this business area right next to us, we have a lot of elderly people that don't hear or see well. They are all walking to the store. We have a lot of animals that are walking to the store, and we have children that are in the middle of the street, the residents that live there, riding their bikes, riding their skateboards, not looking day and night because our homes are so small and we share walls. Our children that live in our community must play outside. Why can't they be happy with 1 to 8? They made it sound like they're struggling to have a business since 2011 and they can't possibly run an effective business. 1 to 8 is a perfect amount in this community. I'm asking you to please do the right thing for 302 owners. I'm asking you to please not approve this.
Thank you, Dan. Jurgen, followed by Jurgen will be Suzanne Shaw. Is it Jurgen?
Jürgen.
Sorry, my apologies.
No problem. My name is Jürgen Stiefel. Good evening. I'm a board member of the HOA of the 302 condo units, and it's a really condensed community, and we had a lot of discussions also with the Rasta family. They made false information from the very beginning in their application, and I don't know why this never was really came up really with you guys or also with the planning council. It's very, very weird. As it was stated before, they have since 2011 a business of a small childcare, and you wanted to approve it for 10 children, and that seems, I think that was your question, that seems a little, well, from 8 to 10 doesn't matter, but you have to know the license that they will get from the state says 9 to 14, so they can always have 14 with the state and their license. And how do we control this? I mean, there is no way that we can control it if they have more. So, and it's how it developed and how they made false representation in the beginning, I don't know. This is something that really worries me. I think that's pretty much everything. But the one thing what I want to ask, why is it that all the time, I'm here now for the 4th time, and I think I was at the Planning Commission. Why is it that the Rasta family's lawyer has the last word all the time? It's very funny to me that we talk first, and then he can listen to everything. I don't know if he even tapes us. So why is this? This is very weird to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jurgen. Suzanne Shaw, and then following Suzanne would be David Hirani.
Thank you. I'm also a property owner in this area, very near to where this daycare center is. The owner, as you can see, and with the information that I've sent you, confirmed at several times that the map that is being shown is an accurate representation of the property. That's the map that they submitted. The map shows that there's an exit at the rear of the house, and also shows that exit extending from the property leading through a gate in the fence, and states that this exit leads to a sidewalk that ends up at the street. There is no gate at that location, and there is no sidewalk adjoining their property. The actual exit, this is where they show the exit is. The actual exit is at the rear of their side yard that's being used as the only outside play area. That little area is their outside play area. Outside the actual exit are trees, shrubs, and trash cans that are actually blocking the exit. This is their second fire exit. They stated that OCFA had inspected the site and had approved it. And you've got their written statement of that. It's not true. They were denied. I went to OCFA. They stated that they would not have even gone to the property, so that was incorrect, and that they gave me a copy of the requirements. The two main requirements, and council has requested that they show some of this information, which they never did. In all of your correspondence, they never show the pull fire alarm. They do not have a clear second exit. They submitted a map of the streets showing the available parking. All those blue circles are areas where there is not available parking. And if you read your emails, I sent a couple of pictures this morning that I actually took this morning showing almost every single parking spot was taken during the time that they were going to have drop off. The area adjacent to their property is a steep hill, so there's, to try to take children out, if they could get through the exit, is going to be nearly impossible. The information given to the Planning Commission was obviously meant to mislead the Commission and the City Council, since they have not given accurate information and can't meet the OCFA's guidelines. I don't see how you can approve a CUP.
Thank you. Naveed Harani, that's our last card.
Good evening, my name is Naveed Harani. Just to clarify a couple things, I'm nobody's attorney. I'm just a private citizen. I'm not representing the Rastas, and I'm not taping anybody. I think it's just being taped by itself. Just as background, this has been going on for more than a year, and what we are here to discuss is 2 extra children being added to a daycare that's been operating for more than 7 years without any complaints from anybody in the community. I've come to several of these meetings, and the appellants have made statements, and we are going to make statements, and from what I have come to learn is that we are going to say things and they're going to say things, and from your position, it can be easy to get caught up in the he said, she said of what is going on here. There is a neutral authority that is objective and has reviewed the facts and has reviewed the law and has applied the law to the facts of our case, and that is the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has spent hours upon hours reviewing every single nook and cranny of our application and have applied the law to our application. And on numerous occasions, they have come to the conclusion that in all respects, we are compliant with law. That's the end of the story here. Every single aspect of this application has been reviewed. And this process has been going on for so long that it's actually been reviewed by several people in the Planning Commission. The individual who initially reviewed this is not even there anymore. So a new person has now reviewed everything and again has come to the conclusion that this is compliant with law. The appellants, or the people that before me came up here and said there were false statements made. They didn't actually provide any evidence or provide any specifics about that. The people who were in charge of determining whether a false statement was made is the Planning Commission who has reviewed that. If they had any issue, they would have told us, and we could have corrected anything. What's happening here is there's been an application submitted by someone who operates a small business And that small business is actually providing a very substantial benefit and public policy benefit to the residents of this community. She's not operating a strip club. She's not operating this casino. She's providing a home for children. And her reward for doing it the right way and for just wanting to add 2 kids, going through this process, complying with every single thing that's been asked of her, is to now be dragged through this rigmarole of months and months of he said, she said. All I'm asking you to do is look at the objective, neutral authority who has reviewed this and take their word for it. You don't have to take mine, and you don't have to take the other side's. You can look at the Planning Commission's reports, who has looked at this and applied the law to it, who has gone to the office every single day and done this, and take their decision. I know I had 10 minutes. Should have gone 10 minutes.
So that was 3 minutes.
Yeah, so I'll stop when I'm supposed to stop.
Thanks for jumping on that.
Yeah.
Thanks for your comments.
Hi. So you are the applicant?
So just for clarification, so everyone knows what happened
Yeah,
there,
so
real
just
quick.
to clarify-
Let me clarify what just happened.
Right.
So Naveed turned in a speaker card. He spoke for 2 minutes and 50 seconds as a separate speaker, speaking in favor of the Rastas application, but he was not a party to. So now we're going to hear from the applicant, which they're going to introduce themselves and get 10 minutes.
So this is my mom. She's the daycare provider who's deathly afraid of public speaking, so she's asked me to speak on her behalf. I own the property. He is not our attorney. He's actually my fiance, and he's also a private citizen, the same way that the 2 individuals before us who spoke are husband and wife. So he does not represent us in a legal capacity. We're not going to stand up here and attack our neighbors. That's not the focus here. We're not going to get into a he said, she said, because ultimately it's going to look like 2 kids fighting in a sandbox, and that's not what we're trying to do. The fact of the matter is that if you turn your attention to page 4 of the Planning Commission's report, paragraph 4, it says that the application complies with all applicable provisions of the San Clemente Municipal Code. We've been reviewed over and over again by this Planning Commission by 2 separate individuals. And every time the math adds up to the same solution, that the project should be approved. And it should be approved because it's compliant with the requirements and the city ordinances. These are neutral parties. We didn't hire them on our behalf. The black letter of the law is the ultimate authority here, and we're asking that these facts be taken into account. The state makes the decision about exits. They make the decision about whether or not we have enough fire extinguishers, carbon monoxide detectors, locks on the door. We're not done after this gets approved. The state inspectors and the fire authority have to come in and make those determinations. And no, the fire authority has not denied anything because they're waiting for this CUP decision so that they can move forward, they can do their inspection, and the state inspectors ultimately come in and do those inspections in the very end, and they ultimately decide whether or not to give her a license. So it doesn't end here. In terms of, well, this is a business and it's causing traffic and parking, the city of San Clemente has issued more than a dozen business licenses to businesses in our community. There are dog walking services, there are printing and shipping businesses, there are at least 6 real estate agents, there are luxury car dealers, all who work out of their homes in our dense, as they say, community. We're not the only business here. And we're only asking for 2 more children, and this has led to all of this. We've been in this process since December of 2017. The chair of the Planning Commission came to our community. We didn't know that he did this. He revealed that on the day of the meeting in April. He came on 6 different occasions for an hour each time, during different times of the day. And he observed traffic, parking, and noise. And he determined that there was no issue with traffic, there was no issue with parking, and there was no issue with noise. We didn't know he was here, and they didn't know he was there. He showed up to see for his own eyes in reality what happens every single day, and those were his determinations. Our HOA president isn't here because they dropped their appeal after we had that meeting. The partner of the law firm who represents our HOA had a meeting with us. Mr. Juergen was there. He was the only board member who was against it. His wife was also here speaking today, as is their right. but he was the only member of our HOA board who was opposed to it, which was his right, but the majority decided to drop the appeal. The partner of the firm was there, and so was a second lawyer, and they determined that they were not going to pursue it. We are wondering when is enough at this point. We're here to answer your questions. We respect the democratic process, and all those things are true. But ultimately, there's so much red tape that comes into play here because it turns into a he said, she said. We understand we have neighbors and that they have concerns, but the reality is that the woman who filed this appeal and the individuals who just spoke live outside of the 300-foot boundary that the city of San Clemente has determined that is required when they send notices out for public hearing. So they have their separate entrances to the community, they have their separate exits. They don't directly clash at all with where we live or where we are. This is not an amusement park, it's not a school, it's 2 more kids. To the point that this home was paid for in cash, that's irrelevant. To the point that we never came to the HOA because we were somehow doing something shady, that's not true. When you have a license for 8 children, you don't need a CUP. But the minute you decide to increase that number, that's when you need one, which is why we're here. And the HOA was always aware that we were running a daycare. We had those conversations through our realtor when we bought that house. Nobody pays however much you pay for a home in cash, only to have this run into this problem afterwards. And if businesses were such a problem in our homeowners association, there wouldn't be more than a dozen of them with business licenses with the city right now. There's also a point raised that if you approve the CUP for 10 children, ultimately the state gives us a license for 14. If we were ultimately going to get a license for 14 children, why on God's green earth would we go through this entire process, spend thousands of dollars, because we're paying the city the money and their time that they're spending on this. They're spending a lot of time putting this together, the Planning Commission, I mean. Why would we go through all of that only to not follow the CUP in the end? How on God's green earth does that make sense? We're asking that the law and the ordinances and ultimately the recommendation of a neutral party be taken into account here. We're not asking for special treatment. We've been to the hearings, we've complied with the rules, down to the very last carbon monoxide detector has been installed. And ultimately, if this CUP goes through, the Orange County Fire Authority needs to come by. They need to do their full-on inspection, and as I mentioned, the state comes and does theirs. This process doesn't end today. We're asking for this to be looked at from an objective point of view, and sometimes it's difficult to see that when you have so much noise in the background from people who are presenting information that's just not true. If it wasn't true the first time, someone would have caught it the second time. We're here to answer your questions. We understand that there's a time limit. We can't just call out or shout out, and all those things are fine, and we agree with that. But we're asking for you to at least ask us if you have a question, because nobody knows this application better than we do. And it's been many months. It's been a lot of work and a lot of time. We want to thank the Planning Commission for all the effort that all the research they've put into this outside of us to try and fully make sure that all of these are compliant. Finally, with parking and issues of the HOA had a private meeting with us, as I mentioned, with their attorneys. They decided to withdraw their appeal, and they've determined with us that in terms of any issue that they may have, that their attorneys would be in direct contact with us. So at this point, it becomes a matter of neighbor versus HOA, and it's unfortunate that the council of a major city in Orange County is now getting dragged into an issue between neighbors and their homeowners association. That's also another part of it, the way that we see it. We're happy to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you for your time.
Have any questions of the applicant?
I have a quick question. When you first opened up, did you contact your neighbors and tell them what you're doing and come up with some parking instruction for your for your parents that you could share with your neighbors that they knew how the drop-off was going to go. Did you do that?
Yes. The answer to that question is yes.
Okay, so explain to me how you instruct your parents on the drop-off?
So the parents they go through sort of, I guess it's an orientation type thing before they bring their children. And my mom goes through, of course, all the state requirements, the vaccines that the children need to have, everything that you would imagine when you take your child to school, for example. The state requirements are very similar to that. Then she does sort of a walkthrough and shows them where they're allowed to park, goes over the speed limit. We've had issues in our homeowners association with rideshare apps and Uber and these types of things where people are kind of speeding on the roads. That's been a concern. She goes over speed limit requirements with them. She goes over where to park. They're not allowed to park in the air. There's a designated area for residents, which is kind of like, like in the driveway almost. And then the parking on the street is separate. So they're instructed to not park in resident parking. So in other words, along the street. And that's the way that they are told how to do it. And I mean, these parents are Talega residents. I mean, they're familiar with, there's a speed limit. You can't just speed on the road. Some people walk, which is another point that we wanted to bring up, is a lot of these families walk because they live in that same area. And so they'll just walk and bring their kids. There's no issue with cars. Some of these families have multiple children in one family who are enrolled in the daycare. So when we say 10 kids, it's not really 10 kids every day. I mean, yesterday she had 3. So, it's just to give her more flexibility. And some of these parents, like I said, have 2 or 3 kids who are part of the same family. And that's the way that they do that.
What drove you to want to increase it? Because what I saw in the report was that you had to turn people away.
That's right.
Is that the only reason?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a need for it in our community. It's just San Clemente's been so wonderful. It's also been growing. So she's had.
Plus, sometime like one of the mom has like I have extra emergency or something. I want to have it, but I want to do it by a rule. I don't want to take one more because my license. That's why I want to do it. Like I have flexibility by it. That's why I did. Honestly, if I was thinking about this.
A parent needs to drive. I mean, she's had parents where she's like, look, I can only take one of your children, not the other one. I don't have space for the other one. This is not a corporate machine. It's a very personal, family-oriented environment. And these parents become family to us as well. Their kids, to a certain age, think that my mom is their mom when they're young. And so, the parents build these bonds with her and they say, look, we want to have a second kid. Are you going to be able to, care for our child? And she'll say, look, I don't have space. It was coming from that place because ultimately 2 more kids doesn't make a huge financial difference. It's not about the finances. It's about the flexibility.
Did somebody live full-time in the residence, one of the 3 of you? Okay, as long as that's all I need to know. Thank you.
No questions for them.
Okay.
No
thank
questions?
you. Yep. I do have some questions of staff, though, just to follow up on what some of the speakers spoke of. So, Veronica, if you could step up. So I'm just going to go down the list here, and hopefully we can address all the concerns. The first concern I heard was that the state's going to give them a permit for 14. How do we control that and ensure that it's only 10?
So if the state issues a license and they cap it at 14, they still have the entitlement of the conditional use permit, which is what the city requires in order for the use to operate. And if they were to violate their CUP, then their CUP would be void, and that
So someone who lives in the community could call code enforcement just like they would for any other issue?
Correct.
Okay. Someone mentioned some exit concerns. Were exits addressed by staff when we took this
Exits are
application?
not a part of our zoning ordinance review. They're an OCFA.
Okay. Perfect. One of the issues that I have, and we don't get a lot of business licenses, home business licenses coming to council, but I do know one of the issues that staff looks at is traffic concerns. So explain to me at what point traffic would be too large and staff would say, we're not going to allow this type of business in a residential.
So maybe there needs to be some things of code of conduct and controlling what you have and picking it up. I don't know. But if they just assume that we're going to clean it after, they can't have carte blanche to just make a mess.
Yeah, and it's not unusual to have deposits or have money posted to cover the cleanup costs. The bid specs on the, or the bids that came in on it, that went from 18,000 estimate to 26,000. Do you know how many bidders we had on that?
2 so far. Yeah.
And was that for a one-time, or was it like an annual contract?
It was to mimic the service that we had been providing, which was twice-a-year cleaning in the area that I described in your report, which is more than just the T-zone. It's El Camino Real from Presidio to Palizada, Del Mar from El Camino Real to Avenida Victoria, then in the Pier Bowl, Avenida Victoria up to the Beachcomber, and then we also added in an option to do this segment in front of the senior center because we were aware of some recent concerns about the cleanliness at that entrance.
All right,
Twice
so
a year.
we're talking about an awful lot more of lineage than, or acreage than what just the T-zone area.
That's correct.
And the 26,000 covers the cleaning at least twice.
Twice yearly,
in a
that's
year.
correct.
So the 18,000 estimate that we originally worked on, was that in thinking it was going to be an annual basis, or was it thinking one time? So we figured biannual, okay.
So I'm going to be supportive with that. I'm going to move that we direct staff to continue with the bids and award a contract, or if it needs to come back to us with consent, whatever the next step in the process would be, and that we remind Adam and his code enforcement officers that businesses need to clean up 500 feet within their business, and then that we take a look at our activities permit for the chamber for next fiesta to ensure that they're paying their fair share of street cleanup.
Before I second it, I'd like to add to that, that should our bids still come in so high, there's 2 things that we need to give to the business community. One is if they can't wash it down, but they have these old inventions.
If you're going to say broom, I'm going to die.
They're called a broom. And so they can sweep up in front, and the cleaner they keep the areas in front, the less expensive it is for us to do the major cleaning. So that would keep our costs down. And when we come back with the final bids, we may want to talk about the overage between 18,000 to whoever they end up with, and maybe we'll work out a deal where we can share the cost with the business community for the increase. We're going to cover the 18 grand, but we may want to be looking, there might be a way to work on sharing some of that additional cost on the initial big cleanup so that we finally get that sidewall looking like it's supposed to look. So I am supporting it, but I'm just caveating it that we may want to look at these other additional parts to it.
Clear as mud, Tom?
Clear, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Joanne, we don't have to read the account or anything? Okay, thank you. So did you get a second?
Do we need motion or directions?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Second readings?
Yes, sir.
Oh, see that you guys got this all messed up. Yeah, I do. I have council member items that I want to bring up since no one else wanted to. I know, but I came back, so. Oh, Kathy's got something? Oh, okay, well, we're going to go straight to me. So there's 2 things I want to bring up. The first one is that I got to meet the Commandant of the Marine Corps last week. I went in place of the mayor because he was out of the country. And so this is the Commandant of the Marine Corps. He's the guy in charge. He's a 4-star general, Mr. Neller. He's a great guy. I was there on behalf of the city for the Incheon Landing 68th anniversary. And I got to sit with some pretty incredible Korean War veterans that had some amazing stories and that served this country very well. Very humbling experience. It was fun to meet this individual and sit down with the general and discuss some things that are going on at the base. But I thought I would share that and say thanks, Tim, for letting me step in your place. The second item I want to bring up is, I'm a little ashamed to say it's the first time I ever went to the Cabrillo Playhouse, but I went for their comedy night, and it was amazing. So they have the best deal on drinks in town, in case nobody knows. They're free. They just want a donation. So I'm surprised it wasn't more packed. We sold that night. We had a ton of fun, and I'm definitely going to be going to more Cabrillo Playhouse evenings. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, I have one item. As you know, we've looked at and we've done staff reports for historical districts, possibly downtown and North Beach. All I'm asking for tonight is that council directs staff to come back with some type of a management plan of what it would take to implement those. So staff would come back with whatever, look at our reports, whatever needs to be done, how much time it would take, how they reach out to the public. That's what I'm asking for tonight. So we initiate that. Do you need anything more, Joanne? Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, so, everybody done? Okay, so we're requesting the second reading of ordinance 1663, which prohibits possession of open containers of alcohol in public places. So if someone would like to make the motion and read the title.
So I move that we adopt, I'll read the title too. So
You do need
the
to.
title is ordinance number 1663, prohibiting possession of open containers of alcohol in public spaces. I move that we adopt ordinance number 1663 entitled ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Clemente, California, amending the San Clemente Municipal Code, Chapter 9.04 to prohibit possession of open containers of alcohol in public spaces.
Second.
Motion by Ham, second by Wardle. Second is move that we adopt ordinance number 1664, removing language relating to status crimes and to consolidate provisions regarding penalties and administrative fines, and that's to adopt ordinance number 1664 entitled an ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Clemente, California, amending the San Clemente Municipal Code to remove language relating to the status crimes and to consolidate provisions regarding penalties and administrative fines.
Second.
Second by Swartz. All in favor? Aye. Passes 3-0. And with that, I move that we adjourn to the next regular council meeting, which will be held on, every time this gets me, the next regular council meeting will be held on Tuesday, October 2nd, 2018, in the council chambers located at 100 Avenue Presidio, San Clemente, California. Closed session items will be considered at 5 p.m. The regular business meeting will commence at 6 p.m.
And you did it, I said. Okay. That was good when you started.